Hello, everybody. Welcome to our quick weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Phil Corbin, Sales and Marketing Director here at Variphy. I'll be your host in today's webinar. We are joined today by our CDR ninjas, Matt Sykes, aka Matty Ice, and Victor Verba, aka CDR Jesus. In today's webinar, we're going to cover hunt group reporting with Cradle to Grave advanced search sets. We're going to start off with a quick overview of Variphy, what we do. We're going to jump into a live demo with Vic, guide you through the best techniques to effectively report and analyze on your hunt groups with Cradle to Grave advanced search sets. We're going to pause for Q&A, get some of your questions answered. So during the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel. There's a chat panel and Q&A panel. Make sure you ask them in the Q&A panel at the bottom right of the screen. After Q&A, we are going to reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. Hang around, see if you've won. Let's get into it. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, CCX reporting, phone control, change management, but today, we've highlighted it, we're going to focus primarily on our call analytics module. If you have any other questions on any of our other features, let us know. We can most definitely assist and take them offline and get those questions answered. Before we get in the Vic demo, we wanted to announce we now offer a new service that provides managed consulting services to our customers. Sales engineers will be engaged in a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configurations, system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides a dedicated Variphy SE to do all of the heavy lifting on report creation and generation, kind of like what you'll see Vic do today. More information, please contact us. We'd be glad to speak more in depth about our new service offering. All right, enough with the slide deck. Let's get into it. Vic, we got you here.
All right.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil.
I'm going to pass you the ball here.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Boom.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen out here. All right. Hey, everybody, I want to thank everybody for attending today. Purpose of today's session, as Phil had discussed, is we're going to dig a little bit into Cradle to Grave. So specifically as it relates to hunt groups, and we're gonna pick out a couple call scenarios and just kind of talk a little bit about what we utilize to help diagnose and determine different Cradle to Grave options and build different search sets. So a little bit of what we're going to build today are some specific examples. But first things first. So I'm popping into Variphy and I'm going right to our call history search screen. So this is where we can do quick searches and things like that. I could pop right into the reports repository, but we're just going to start off here looking at our hunt group 77280. Anybody that's attended any of our previous webinars, the reason that I'm using the original called party number here rather than the hunt pilot is specifically because I think you get more accurate information from the original called party than you do from the hunt pilot. And I think we'll see a couple examples of that in this data. If a call comes into a hunt pilot and say doesn't get answered, many times Cisco doesn't actually put the hunt pilot number onto the call in the hunt pilot field. So if you're searching on hunt pilot, you may miss certain call types. Also, with things like transfers and forwards, Cisco has a tendency to add the hunt pilot DN onto each subsequent transfer leg. So it would result in multiple counts of a particular hunt pilot or a hunt group. So I like to pick on the original called party number. And obviously we're going to see in the data there's ways to kind of eliminate and exclude certain legs of the call. So let's go ahead and dig into it. First things first is I have my hunt pilot number in here. I'm searching original called party number equals 77280. And I'm looking at the previous week. If I wanted to change my dates and time frames, I could just do that up at the top right. So I'm going to go ahead, click view my results. What this is going to do is going to bring back a one-to-one relationship of my search to a call record that has the original called party number of 77280 in it. So what we're going to see here are basically all of the calls that just have that field met. we're not going to see initially what's going on inside or outside. In other words, how did it get to that hunt pilot? What happened after somebody answered that call? We don't really see that when we're just doing a general search. But the nice thing about Variphy is we still can get that information. So by quickly just clicking Export Results, it's going to bring me into a report generation screen where I could save this report for later. We can come back to it, do anything that we really need to do, schedule it daily, weekly, monthly, hourly, once we save it. So first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pop over to this Cradle to Grave and toggle this guy on. So this is going to go ahead and derive our Cradle to Grave formatting. So I'm going to run this real quick, and then we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about some fields that we need in here when we're doing some troubleshooting or we're really starting to build a Cradle to Grave search report. Because the standard out-of-the-box things like device descriptions, device names, first names, last names, departments, those are all great information, but it doesn't necessarily give you the tools or the power to break down certain calling scenarios. So what I mean by that is here we're looking at our calls. I can see I have 257 calls into my hunt group. Here's that one-to-one relationship that I'm talking about. Each one of these calls has that original called party number in it. So if I click on one of these legs, I can see I have multiple legs, multiple things going on here. So calls are bouncing around, they're migrating. Some of them are, in this case, it's getting parked. In this case, it's getting answered, but it's actually coming from a UCCX. But what I need to do for Cradle to Grave is I really want to dig into some of these metrics. So a couple of things that we're going to look at today are, one, I want to be able to identify calls that are parked. How long have they been parked? What's the average amount of time calls are being parked? Another thing we're going to try to identify today is I want to see all the calls that came maybe from my call center. In other words, who hit an option in my Unity system that routed to a call center agent who ended up just having to send it over to maybe a hunt group or a hunt pilot. That's important because why are people going into my call center when perhaps I just need a Unity option to be able to direct calls directly to a different department via a hunt group? And then last but not least, time permitted, we're going to go ahead and take a look at one other metric. And that's going to be how many calls are coming into my hunt pilot, but then going off into my call center. So that's a very important metric as well because, again, not just from the call center perspective, but, well, why are calls going into my hunt group, but then getting transferred off to my call center when maybe I could just be redirecting those particular calls to my call center directly. So we're going to take a look at those three scenarios today, but we need more information. So parking calls are easy. I can see I've got a call park, I've got a parking lot device. But when I'm trying to determine, how do I know if this call here came from a call center, which in this case it did. Looking at my Cradle to Grave, I could see a call navigated through my Unity system, went into my UCCX. They spoke with an individual, Kathy, over here for 43 seconds. Then Kathy in my call center then transferred that call down to the hunt group where it got answered over here by Lindsay. So I could see that this person got into my rentals department but really needed maintenance. So what gives? So we're going to go ahead and take a look into that, but we need a little bit more to be able to differentiate things like this scenario from calls like this scenario. So the first thing I'm going to do is just close this guy out, and we're going to add some additional fields in here. And I'm going to make it relatively easy, and I'm not going to pick really individual fields. I'm going to pick individual field types. So the first thing I'm going to do to get more information in here is I'm just going to come in and I'm going to type in behalf. All right, and this is going to bring up some Cisco codes. Now, we're not just going to give you the code, we're going to actually give you some reasoning. So we're not just going to say, hey, behalf of code 12345, because that means nothing and nobody wants to have to reverse engineer Cisco data. That's what Variphy is for. So we're going to go ahead and just to make this easy, we're going to pick all of these codes. So just type in behalf and pick all of the codes. All right, easy enough. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some redirect information. So for that, I'm just going to type in redirect. And that's going to bring up all of my redirect reasons. So I can easily just add all of these, and it's going to give me a lot of pertinent information, but I really only need about 3 of these guys. So, and to make it easy, it's really the top 3. And I'm just going to add those guys in there. All right, so now all I've done is I've searched and I've added all my behalf of codes. I've added my most pertinent redirect codes, and again, just picking the top 3. And the next thing I'm going to want, which are very important, are my cause codes. cause codes help you determine why a particular call leg or call field has ended. So this could be the end of a call, or it could be the end of a particular leg of a call that gets transferred on to another party. All right. So now that we've got those guys in here, we're going to go ahead and save this, and that's going to dynamically update for us in the background. No need to regenerate the data. It's just going to add all those codes in here. All right, so now we're seeing some pertinent information. We're seeing things like transfers. We're seeing things like devices. We're seeing that, ooh, there's a nice one. So this one went through a call control. So here's a good one that went through we'll take a look at that scenario in a bit. Resource was unavailable, so it went through call control and then got referred down to another party. So now what we're seeing is we're seeing some very pertinent information. And you know what? Actually, there's one more field I want to add. So this is a nice important field, and this is not a Cisco-generated field. This is something that Variphy creates based off of all of this information combined. So all of these cause codes, all of these redirect codes and termination codes, Variphy likes to, do the best it can to determine how calls are flowing, what's being answered, what's being transferred. So I'm going to go ahead and add this field called called scenario types. And that's going to tell us a little bit more information on what's actually happening with these calls. And you'll notice things like not connected, transferred from. Here's a call that was answered, connected, it was partly forwarded, it's medium duration, and it's a consultative transfer. So all we're really doing is we're taking all of this information that we're here through these behalf of codes and these redirector codes, and we're giving you a little bit of a summary of what we see based on this call information. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export this report. And again, we've got our cradle to grave on. We've got our format in HTML. Always say if you're going to add detail into a report, you're going to want to use an HTML, Excel, or CSV, so that way you're not losing any fields or nothing's getting cut off. So now we're going to run this guy. Whoop. So if I unsave it there. There we go. So now what it's doing is running in the background. It's doing essentially the same thing that the last report did, is it's grabbing all of our calls to 77280. It's merging them all together. But then what it's going to do is it's going to spit out that same information, but we're going to have a whole lot more fields to look at now. Those fields are going to really help us determine how these calls are flowing, but also how to pick out certain values in calling scenarios. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flow down to a sequence of events that I was looking at earlier. I'm going to go down to sequence 188 down here, because this is a good example of something that we want to capture, and something that we talked about in the very beginning. So what 188 is going to go ahead and show us is calls that basically came from the UCCX or a call center, but then got routed into the hunt group. So it's very important to kind of know those, because maybe that's not the normal routine. Maybe you don't want your call center agents handling calls that should really just be handled directly at the hunt group. Maybe they have their own DID, maybe they have their own Unity option, but people just aren't understanding it. So what we want to do is we want to be able to identify this and give a count of how often this is happening. So first thing first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this call. So here I have a call that comes in, goes into my voice messaging system. From my voice messaging system, now they are hitting an option. They're hitting an option to get to my rentals department. So I can tell they bounce into my UCCX here, and they get answered over by Jen, who's in my rentals group. All right, so this is important. So now, for whatever reason, they were in this Unity system, and they said, hey, I don't know where I'm supposed to be going. I'm just hitting an option, and they popped over to rentals. So now what we want to do is we need to be able to identify this call. So we want to say how many calls came from my call center and went to my hunt group. Now, there's a lot of different things in here. I can't just identify every call that went into my hunt group, because then that's going to get things like this, where a call came into a hunt group and just ended up rolling into Unity. Or let's see, a call came directly into the hunt group and got answered. We don't want this call in here, because this is the way things are supposed to happen. But what we do want is this guy. So the first thing we do is we need to take a look at the fields that we have available to be able to identify this call. So one, I know it came into my UCCX. Now I could easily run a report on all my UCCX devices and then just say, hey, show me how many calls went to the hunt group. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to dig into the cradle to grave a little bit. So we're going to focus strictly on the hunt group in our search, which is exactly what we're doing now. But then off that search, we're going to isolate this calling scenario. So the first thing I'm going to look at is this guy and this guy, okay? So what makes him, because he came from a UCCX, different than, let's say, this one that didn't come from a UCCX, or better yet, this one that didn't come from a UCCX. There's lots of different codes in here, lots of different fields in here. One thing that I can go ahead and focus on is I can absolutely focus on things like terminating codes. I can focus in on things like call scenario. I can focus in on the last redirect, and all of these fields give me differentiators in the call data. So now let me go ahead and go back up to our record here, and we're going to see what differentiates this call from this call. And let's focus this guy down a little bit here. Come on. And it's not going to let me grab it because WebEx is blocking me here. Let's move this guy down. There we go. Go back up to our calling scenario of 188. It's a little bit small. I'm going to blow this up a little bit here for us. And of course it jumps. And our sequence was 188. So all I'm just going to do is scroll down to that guy, and we'll have that guy in the bottom of the screen. But again, what we're going to do here is we're going to isolate. So I can see all these fields are very similar. I have my date, my time duration. I have different devices and things like that. But one of the things you're going to notice is this column right here, this last redirect DN. So when a call rolled in through my normal Unity system and went to an agent and or off of the hunt group and got answered, that last redirect DN in this case is the Unity system. And that's what I would expect to see. But if we take a look at my calling scenario here, what you're going to see is that last redirect is actually one of my agents. So I can see that this agent transferred the call into the hunt group. When it got answered, it got redirected. In other words, the last call that this one got redirected from was from my agent. So the nice thing about that is that actually gives us a very clear focal point. In my case, I know my agent DNs are all 7s. So I can easily come in and say, all right, out of all the calls that went to my hunt group, how many of them were last redirected from a 7,000 extension? So we're going to go ahead and build that right into a report. And what that's going to do is it's going to isolate all the calls that came from UCCX directly into my hunt group. So let's do that. So I'm going to export these results. I'm going to go to report to Cradle to Grave here, and I'm going to build a Cradle to Grave search set. So I'm going to say calls directed from call center. All right, so I'm focusing in on a very certain set of events. So first thing first, I have my group. So I'm going to bring back every call to 77280. We're not going to lose any of that information. But what I'm doing is I'm building a search set based off of that last redirect DN. Here we go. And now, like I said, looking back at the report, I know that my 7,000 extensions are my UCCX in this case. So I'm just going to say my last redirect DN is 7XXX. Now I'm isolating that particular calling scenario. Now the next thing I can do is I can go ahead and say that my original called party number, again, is only the 77280. That means if somehow something gets redirected from this extension and directly into some other extension, I'm not going to see that on here because I'm only focusing in when the UCCX called the actual hunt group. So we're going to add one more field. And we'll add that original called party number here. And we're going to add our 77280. Now you may be saying, hey, maybe this is a little bit redundant. Don't forget to check mark this guy. You may say this is redundant. You're already searching on 77280. Why don't you just put the 7XXX into the search set? I could absolutely do that. But what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and filter this report down to only those calls. But we're just getting started here. We don't want only those calls. We want to see everything going on in the hunt group, and we want to choose different calling scenarios. So this scenario right here is going to be the calls directed from the call center into the hunt group. So we're going to go ahead and save this guy again. We're going to give it a new name. Call it call scenarios. We're going to save this guy, and we're going to give it a run. So now what you're going to see, and I think I might have forgot to turn on the Cradle to Grave searching. So hold on one second. We're going to go ahead and let this guy finish. So you're going to notice what I did here is I just made an error. So I added a Cradle to Grave search, but I didn't actually tell it that I wanted to summarize on that search. So you'll notice here, I've just basically have the same report that I had before. So let's go ahead and edit that guy. And now we're in our reports repository. If I go down to Cradle to Grave, I forgot to turn this guy on right here. What this guy does is it says, yeah, I got this great search in here, but now I want to see some summary. I want to know how many times this happened, the total average duration of those calls that came from the call center. Maybe how many calls were abandoned. How many times did the call center send a call to the hunt group that just got abandoned? Maybe if I can roll in the voicemail, how many times did the call center send somebody to voicemail and then, or into the hunt group, and then it just ended up in voicemail? And any other summary statistics that you would see, fit to be, that would be important. So let's go ahead and give this guy a quick run. And now what we're going to see is a little bit more information. So we'll go ahead and adjust our time window. What we're going to see here is our same search. We're going to see how many calls came into the hunt group. That information's not going to change. But what we're going to see is an additional layer of summary. We're going to see the cradle to grave summary now that's going to tell you, hey, this is how many calls came into the hunt group. But out of all the calls that came in the hunt group, this is how many came in via the call center. So what I'm looking at here are 257 calls that came into the hunt group. Out of the 257 calls, 20 of them went to the call center first. So that's a good metric. Now I'm looking at a previous week, but on a much larger system, that could be a very, very high number. So by looking at that, there's other things we can do. We could say, well, okay, this is great. That shows how many calls came into the hunt group, but I could isolate this by departments. I could isolate this by end users. There's a lot of different things that we could do with that cradle to grave to give you different and break those counts down. So now we've got some good information. So now I can see, one, how many calls are coming into my hunt group. I can see, two, out of the calls coming into my hunt group, how many are coming from the call center. In other words, those customers called the call center first. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say, okay, well, let's see how many we've got coming into the hunt group that are then having to get transferred out to the call center. So we're going to go ahead and look at that scenario now as well. So let's go ahead and add, and you know what, did I close my report out? I did close my original report out. Let's go ahead and open this guy back up. Keep doing that. So essentially what I did is I accidentally closed my report out. So we're just going to run it again so we can take a look at the full scenario. Because now what we're doing in our report, in other words, our 77280 scenarios report, is we're filtering that cradle to grave to pick out certain events. I want to be able to see all of the events. So we're going to go ahead and take a look back, and we're going to go right back down to our calling scenario 188. As soon as this guy lets me load up here, there we go. And we're going to look at a different scenario. So the next scenario we're going to go ahead and isolate. And again, this is very much the same. We're looking through the data. We're looking through these fields to basically pick out differences. So, I added kind of everything in here so you get an idea of what we look at when we're trying to pull out these different scenarios or these different types of events. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at this next scenario right here. This is a scenario 191. Now this one, we could see comes in, goes to my Unity system. They go to the hunt group. They get answered over here by Nikki. Nikki has a great 48-second conversation with the person and then transfers the call down to the UCCX. So this is good because we need to be able to see how many times this is occurring because maybe this shouldn't be occurring. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say, well, okay, what difference maybe differs in this record than maybe some of these other records that we were looking at? Now, much like we did that last one, is we've got some very finite set of criteria here. One, I do know that all my agent starts with the 7.4, so that's great. Now, I can't just run a blanket statement, say, hey, show me all the calls that went to 7, XXX in this case, because then that's going to capture calls that came to the hunt group first, or that came to the call center first. What I need to do is pick out this scenario, because this identifies calls going from the hunt group to the UCCX, and we can see the order here. Now, if we take a look through this, there's lots of fields that are identical. I could maybe use transferred. I could use CCTI line. But one key identifier here is, again, that last redirect DN. If I isolate the calls from the UCCX, I could see that these got redirected from the hunt group. That means it came from the hunt group first. Where my last scenario, I could see that the hunt group call came from the agent first. So we can focus in on that same set of criteria to pick out this call record. So let's go ahead and build it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our call scenarios report here, and we're going to edit this guy. And this is why I built it in Cradle to Grave, because now what I'm doing is I'm still going to bring back everything. I don't want to just bring back this one call. I could build a report that's for this one calling scenario, but I like to have multiple scenarios in my report. So what I'm going to do here is just build another search set, and I'm going to call this guy number 2. And for this, we're going to focus in on those same fields in this case. We're going to focus in on that last redirect DN. But we know in our case, or in this scenario here, which I keep closing for some reason, oh, there it is, that our last redirect DN is the hunt group. And our device is going to be the UCCX. So what this is going to do is it's going to show any call that got redirected from the hunt group to the UCCX and give us those counts. So 77280 is our hunt group, and our terminating device name. If I look at my report, our terminating device name starts with UCCX. That helps me identify any call going to the UCCX. Starts with. And of course, we want to make sure we're matching both of this criteria to bring back any call. So now we can give this guy a save. So calls from HG to call center. So let's give this guy a save and give him a quick run. And basically, essentially what we've done is we've used that cradle to grave and some of the various options within that cradle to grave to pick out finite things that are taking place. This could be calls, getting to park. How long have they been at park? Things like that. But we're picking out these 2 scenarios right here. We're going to pop these guys up on the screen, and now you're going to see out of our, I picked a magic scenario. Out of our 257 calls, 28 of them came from the call center. Only 1 of them came from the hunt group and went down to the UCCX. And then the other calls were just standard calls that were answered, handled, and we could add additional metrics to show who's answering those calls and who's handling those calls very easily just by using data grouping. So, hey, with that, guys, I want to thank everybody for attending. I hope we were able to give you a little bit of insight on things that we utilize in some of the fields we utilize to be able to determine hunt group type reporting and pick out certain scenarios. There is a lot of information here, but the good thing about it when you're running a system like Variphy is you have that cradle to grave, but you also have the ability to dig into those cradle to grave metrics and pick out any number of these events and generate filters to pull out very finite calling scenarios from those cradle to grave options. So with that, Phil, hey, thanks everybody for your time, and right back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Vic. About this time, we're going to open up for Q&A. If you haven't entered your question into the Q&A panel on the bottom right of your screen, now's the time to do so. I'm going to kick it over to Matt. Do we have any great questions that have been asked?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, we do. And I will second that. Anyone that does have any questions pertaining to today's webinar criteria, please feel free to submit it now or after the fact to us, and we can definitely get that answer. But if you want to submit it into the panel now, we can certainly answer that. Yes, Phil, we do have a couple of good questions. And Victor, yeah, keep your screen sharing because I think you may need to open a thing or two up here.
Uh-oh.
So just to show some relatable fields. Good question here from Cindy. Can we track the amount of time a call was queued within a hunt group? We can, correct. If native call queuing is used inside your hunt group, the data should show whether or not there was queuing available. And as Victor is highlighting here right now within the detail columns, as he's adding very easily, if queuing is utilized within the hunt group in this environment, we can certainly identify was a call queued, true or false, how long was the wait time in the queue in seconds, and obviously then also the total wait time as well. So thank you for popping that up, Vic.
Absolutely, and you are spot on, Matt. But yeah, the key of what you said there, buddy, is the fact that native call queuing does have to be used. A lot of people have hunt groups without the full native call queuing, but it does have to be using native call queuing to be able to determine those queue times.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Another question here from Jason. He says he notices in his hunt group data that he usually also sees some zero duration call legs within the C2G sequences. And why is that? Well,
Sure.
Certainly.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, certainly there's a couple of different scenarios that can show that, and Vic's probably going to point one out as well. But definitely there's calls that come into a Unity call handler, and then options are pressed within the handler or IVR, then calls are presented to various locations. We can see zero duration connect legs, or kind of almost a system record for a kind of a transferred system connection.
Yep, you are spot on. Yeah, there's some. I mean, these are a lot of calls coming from Park that'll have zero duration. Here's some calls that the hunt group creates when a call gets transferred from the hunt group. It actually creates a leg for that transfer. Now it's instant. So it's a zero duration call. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Those are the reasons that you see those, is because that's really kind of an instant transfer taking place from the hunt group to an end user. And that's very common. And again, using these cradle to grave sequences is very easy to be able to filter those out. So here's a perfect example, Matt. A call came in from, in this case, that UCCX. They transfer to the hunt group. Cisco creates that transfer leg. Now, Cindy still picked this up. We could see the call come to the hunt group and get picked up by Cindy, but Cisco does create that zero duration transfer leg just to kind of keep track of that transfer.
Which we can filter out though, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I've got one other question that actually was covered in the content that you drove today, Vic, but is the question was, can verify summarize calls that are transferred? Well, certainly within the C2G that actually Victor has open here right now, we can very easily see how the calls were traversed through the environment, but as well as Victor demonstrated here for us, we can create cradle to grave search sets within the reporting to give those additional summarizations that we're looking for calls that are flowing through multiple hops within the environment through the hunt groups.
Yep, and we just spoke, and we fixed. This demonstration was on a very finite set of events, and looking at calls, going to CCX or out or from CCX. Those were very broad. I can filter this on anything. How many calls were transferred to the maintenance department or from the maintenance department, or any number of departments or device pools and things like that can all be tracked as far as transfers go, where they're being transferred. And it's very important to be able to see that, because I need to know how many calls are coming into, my administration department and then maybe being sent to sales. Why are they coming to administration in the first place? So getting those counts is definitely a very important part and something that we do a lot of within Variphy.
Definitely. Thank you for the thorough explanation there, Victor. So at this moment, if anyone else has any other additional questions, please chat them through and we can answer it within the next minute or two here. If not, we can most certainly handle those questions offline and get those answers back to you in a very timely fashion. So we'll just wait another maybe 45 minutes or so just to see if any new questions are proposed to us.
45 minutes.
45 seconds.
And I'm going to go ahead and take the ball.
Go right ahead, Phil.
We have a prize to give away. Right. If you're able to see my screen.
There you go.
All right. Any further questions? Any Q&A questions before we announce the lucky winner? Going once, twice. All right, moment we've all been waiting for. The lucky winner of the $50 Amazon gift card for this week's webinar is Rob Rhodes. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us today. Your account manager will be reaching out with your contact info, how we can get that sent to you. Once again, thank you for joining us each and every Wednesday. Variety of topics. Just in 1216 is now available. If you need to install, reach out to your AM. Ton of new great stuff available in this new upgrade. Again, weekly webinars each Wednesday, verify.com/company/webinars. I think we're booked out through July, so make sure you save your spot. Also, if you see any other features that you might not have, you want to trial, go to verify.com/trial and we can get you going on a trial on those features. So thanks again, Matt, Vic, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.